together. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Paricharini Nirvishim Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we're going to go for our special invocational mantra. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance.
I was born in the darkest of ignorance.
And my spiritual master opened my eyes.
And my spiritual master opened my eyes
with the torch of knowledge.
With the torch of knowledge.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto him.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Okay, great. So thank you. Can Vaishnavi, can you bring us to our current verse for today? Chapter 10, right?
Yes, Maharaj. Chapter 10, verse 9.
Nice. Okay. So we're starting there. All right, good. So I'll do the Sanskrit. I'll do the translation, and then we'll get someone to read a purport, a paragraph, and we'll see if we have something to say at that point. So this, for openers, this is the second verse of the Chatu Shloki, that in 4 verses or shlokas in Sanskrit that express the essence of the Gita, that capture it very well. So we're on the second one. Matschita madgata prana bodhyanta parasparam katyantascha mang nityam tushanti cha brahmanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Thank you. So somebody can read this paragraph.
Curtis, please go.
Sure. Purport. Pure devotees whose characteristics are mentioned here engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees.
Thank you very much for that nice reading. And so you can see from the purport and the verse itself that there's something very holistic here. When I use the word holistic, I want to use it sort of ambiguously. I want to actually say that it means more than just something wholesome or healthy. I'm talking about it's very complete. Beginning with the word pure devotee. Okay, we talk generically, oh, everyone's a devotee, more or less everyone's a devotee, and those who get a little more serious, they're kind of special devotees that become part of the institution. And I'm sorry, somebody was trying to get in and talk to me. But then there's something we call, that's very rare, pure devotees, okay? And so they're addressed, and what is a pure devotee? One who's immersed, one who's got the samadhi thing down, one who's like Krishna is driving that individual, feeling Krishna's presence through all that he or she sees and does and smells and tastes and so on like that. And one of the symptoms of the fact that they're great devotees or pure devotees is the fact that they are sharing. That's what's meant by the word bodhiyanta. And also kathayanta sthimamnitya, talking amongst each other, engaged in Krishna Katha, which comes in two forms. One is in talking about Krishna, and the other one is hearing from Krishna directly. Our Bhagavad Gita, which we're looking at, is one form of Krishna Katha, where Krishna is speaking directly to his friend Arjuna. And we can also take it that, okay, he's also talking to us. And the other form of Krishna Katha is where others are talking about him, like in the Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a text that's all about him. There's 10 subject matters there. It's all about him, his energies, his name, his liberation, his avatars, and about his creation and secondary creation. There's 10 subjects there in all. It's very complete and full. So also to take note here is Ramanti and Tushanti. These two words are quite equal. They're just saying getting a lot of satisfaction. They're always happy doing these things. What things? Sharing Krishna consciousness and sharing it amongst the inner circle and also taking it to the outer circle. This is pretty much the sub and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement, whereby we're all geared up and set for learning about Krishna and sharing about Krishna. You look at the 7 purposes of ISKCON, it's pretty clear there that it's helping to establish what is our relationship with him, capital H, and giving Krishna to others, capturing him and sharing him with others. So there's something very beautiful about all of this. People talk anyways, but they don't always talk about spiritual things. In fact, most people, when they open their mouths, I hate to say, it's kind of pointless, not pointing in the right direction. Which reminds me, I just finished writing a poem about gossip. Anyways, we can look at that a little later on. Any other comments or questions?
Maharaj, what are the symptoms of a Shuddha Bhakta, a pure devotee, that we are able to understand, like who they are?
Well, this question does arise in the Gita itself. And it comes up more than once. It's a question that comes from Arjuna, of course. And the first time that it arises, the Lord answers it by saying, someone who has no desire for material activities. In other words, someone who's very detached. So you can judge a person by what they're doing and also by what they're saying to determine whether they're genuine or not as far as a strong devotee is concerned. So it's good to make observation. In fact, if one wants to go formal, even by going to a guru, said, I'd like to learn from you, then it's a good idea to spend some quality time with that person before making that formal commitment. And of course, upon request, the guru will say, okay, looks like you've got some qualifications there. And the qualifications, because you're asking me about the qualifications of a great devotee. And I'm just talking to you about the qualifications also about one who's got a potential devotee. And so in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Krishna is talking about, well, there has to be some feeling of submission, make inquiries, and that you have a mood for service. Those are the kind of things that an enlightened soul is looking for. Like if you're going to take a job and you're going for your resume and hoping to, really impress your potential employer, then you're going to wear the right clothes, especially if it's a personal interview. You're wearing the right clothes, you're going to look good, you're going to look fresh, and you're going to, he'll be looking at that kind of thing, how kind of a presenter you are. And, if he sees that you left the door kind of half open and you didn't close it when it was closed, immediately that will say something about you. So the employer will, or whoever's interviewing you, will take note of these little details. But it's really more about attitude. The symptom of the pure devotee, relating it more to this verse, is that one who's happy. A devotee is somebody who must be very happy. Someone who's not, let's say, in the doldrums and bearing a grudge or feeling no joy. So that's a strong symptom. That comes through here. And another symptom is that one who always likes to talk about service and about pleasing Krishna, pleasing his devotees, and pleasing even those that haven't made yet a declaration towards bhakti. So to answer your question, those are some of the symptoms you want to look for.
That's great, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you see somebody, they got the gift of gab, they're talking really great, Bob. They're very impressive. Look at that. He's an orator, he's got so much charisma, and everything he says is right on. And then you find out, you go back home and after a couple hours, and you see he's picking up some lady. And like, and you can't take the guy seriously. So that's what they, all right.
Maharaj. Maharaj, are you there?
Paragraph.
Halfway through what you were speaking, it was very clear. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. He's not there. Okay. Manasi Ganga, can you just do a small kirtan until Maharaj? I see Maharaj is here still.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Can we go to the next paragraph then?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. We couldn't hear, some portion of what you were answering Kurtis's question.
Yeah.
The last one or two sentences.
What was the last thing?
Symptoms of pure devotee we're describing.
Yeah, and what was the last thing said?
You said like when you sometimes you see people saying something and doing something else.
Yeah, that was the last point I made. Yep, good. We didn't miss anything. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph.
Can you see?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, can I read?
It's up to you. It's up to Vaishnavi. She's the host.
No, yes, go ahead, please.
In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they release the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in love of God. Once situated in the transcendental position, they can release the highest perfection, which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of a living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them, there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed And if it is shown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies, just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahma Jyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also, that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavana, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19. It is explained that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. Then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so here we are looking at a strong suggestion by Srila Prabhupada. So to look into this analogy, which we find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's a story about plants and planets, and especially the seed that has been started, the seed of devotional service. Bhakti Lata Bij. Bij means seed, Lata means plant, Bhakti means devotion, love. And this is what we all aspire towards, is to become good lovers, lovers of God. So in the beginning stages of bhakti, it can be compared to a seed which is implanted in the heart by Krishna himself and by Guru. It's kind of like a dual effort. Then the analogy is given of this, we have what's called a plant or a creeper, and it starts to grow, just like we see sometimes, a sunflower plant. I mean, those plants are just amazing when you go by a field full of sunflowers, and they're just huge, and they're so big and so inviting, and they kind of just follow the sun's rays. So it's a big plant, it's a big flower. But now imagine something like that creeps and crawls and just goes, enters into the sky, kind of climbs through the sky, and then so far that it penetrates through the coverings of the universe, and then finally it bypasses other planets, not just the Earth, and then finally it reaches Goloka, Krishna's planet, and eventually that plant will go and crawl and touch his feet. So the magnitude, the extent of our bhakti is very vast, it's very big. And so we get this idea of incredible size, mammoth size. There's no limit as to how big you can be a lover of Krishna. But it has to have a starting point. And the starting point, which is mentioned here, and also the finishing point, which is the goal. Because as devotees, we should be goal-oriented. We finally come to perfection, which is, okay, it's Krishna and that's it. Formerly, on a very honest, the devotee will say, before everything that's here was in connection to myself, what can I exploit? What can I extract for pleasure? Isn't it all, that's what it's all about? But as we enter into a devotional zone, we can appreciate that, no, it's not so much about that. It's more about Krishna enjoying everything. And you can get in on the action as well. But there just has to be a beautiful attitude that has to come along with it. Otherwise, our efforts are gone in vain. So, Prabhupada's encouraging us to read the Chitan Charitamrita, and in particular, maybe have a look at this this particular segment from the Madhya Lila, means his middle portion of the Lord's life, and chapter 19 in particular. Yeah. Any questions or comments? I think everybody likes the idea of a seed, a tree, a beautiful tree, and it's bearing fruits, which as we read about just in the very beginning of Chitan Charitamrita, the fruits are love of God. You know? And there's so many of them there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's the gardener, is thinking, wow, I got to get some help here. I can't pick all these fruits myself. I have to get some sangha. I have to get some devotees to help me with this particular, endeavor. And so that's what devotee hunting is all about, trying to find people who are potential devotional people. And they certainly are all out there. Okay, any thoughts, Prabhus, that you may have, questions that came up?
Maharaj, when you mention about the traveling or the trip that the Bhaktilata goes through all the planetary system and finally enter Vaikuntha, it reminded me of the speed of, Prabhupada talks about that the speed of the mind is much faster than the speed of light. And then he mentioned that the speed of the soul, because he said by the mind, I can say now from Calgary, I'm in India, I'm already there with the speed of the mind. But the speed of the soul is so fast, it's inconceivable. So that otherwise people, they would say, how many zillions of years would take for that Bhakti Lata to reach Vaikuntha? So that was reminding me about what Prabhupada said about the speed of the soul.
Right. And thank you for bringing it up. The soul does travel at an incredible rate, as does the mind. But both of those entities never get speeding tickets. No one's there to stop them.
No speeding ticket.
Yeah, so travel can be quick, but it's subtle travel that allows you to go to places real fast, isn't it?
Yeah. Maharaj, I have a question on this one. Prabhupada says the personal service is just like a seed. It is sown in the heart of a living entity. So
yes.
Entities could be tree, could be dog, fish, anything. So how do you put it on those things like human being understand? We can communicate.
Yeah.
How do you put the seed on the other living entities?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, before I got here, I was at the edge of the lake. I went to Scarborough Bluffs where they have these incredible cliffs. And I just need to get some good air to get out of the building because I've been laid back and in bed for a lot. And somebody brought me, what do they call it? Jackfruit, We brought with us some jackfruit. And with those little plasticky things that you tag in the end, okay? So, as soon as we sat down at the picnic table, a seagull shows up. And I said, oh, I know what you want. You want something to eat. So this jackfruit, it was prasadam, So I ate a little bit and I left a little enough that the guy could kind of swallow it in his beak. So I sent it in the air, and I was actually making some demands. Listen, I'm going to throw this in the air, and you have to catch it in the air. I don't want it to land on the ground. Unfortunately, he wasn't listening to me. But he let it land, and he was eating that jackfruit. I did send out quite a few pieces. And what we can say is that in this case, it's prasadam. So we don't need to, dwell too much on the glories of prasadam. But we know what that means. It's something that's blessed. So somehow or other, even something like a seagull can get the benefit of taking prasadam. And in one sense, a seed may be planted. Some kind of bhakti is there instead of eating a dead fish or something like that. He's getting something that's coming more directly from the Lord. So in this way, devotional service begins. And hopefully he won't have to take too many more births as a seagull. Perhaps it'll be something slightly more progressive, and then finally becomes a human being. And that hopefully there will be lots and lots of prasadam coming this way. So we'll take it more seriously, Dharma, when we say that the seed is implanted in the heart of the human being, and maybe a little bit less so. It might take a little bit of time before something really fructifies for the animal or for the bird in this case. So let it be known that devotion comes through the channel of Krishna and Guru. That's what this chapter from the Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about. We're talking about Krishna, who's very kind and merciful. We're talking about the devotee, who's also kind and merciful. So if we get confused about, well, that's a guru and I'm not a guru, says, well, yes, you are. As soon as you are engaged in some devotional service, you're some kind of guru. You might be a small, tiny, insignificant guru, but you are some kind of guru. I remember when we were having these little series here in the Toronto Temple, inviting devotees. Those were the days, we called it. Those were the days. So we asked devotees to come and tell us about the old days, what they experienced, and so on like that. I invited one particular actor friend of mine, and I told him, when I first of all explained the program, that I'm just inviting devotees to come and take their turn and tell us their story. And this particular individual said, "What? I don't know how that fits in. I'm not a devotee." I said, "Well, for God's sake, surely you are." He was thinking, that you have to have the diksha and you have to have a Sanskrit name and all of this and that. And he said, "No, you've done much devotional service, so that means you're a devotee." Let's expand that idea or that understanding of what a devotee is. One who performs acts of devotion is a devotee. Okay. If I cut hair, I'm like a barber. I cut someone's hair. It means I'm some kind of a barber, hair practitioner, or whatever you call it, hair salonist. And so as soon as you do some bhakti, you are a devotee, right? What kind of a devotee you are? Well, there's different levels. We hope you'll grow. But we hope that the seed has been implanted somehow by someone, by Krishna and by Guru / devotee. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yeah, thanks, Maharaj. Yeah.
All right, so we got one more paragraph here to finish our purport. Shall someone take the challenge?
Vishnupriya, do you have a question? Vishnupriya, do you have a question? I thought she raised her hand. Anyway.
All right.
All right. Somebody else read, please. Okay, I will read, Maharaj. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees, as stated in the Bhagavatam itself, 12, 13, 18. Srimad Bhagavata Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there is nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association.
Oh, that last line is so nice. Everybody likes to see a young boy and a young girl get together. It's always a special moment. So nice analogy that Prabhupada gives. So when we say Krishna Katha in this verse, clearly from the Sanskrit, we're talking, what are devotees talking about? Well, events such as what we hear about in the Bhagavatam, just to qualify, it's the creme de la creme of the Vedic literatures. It is let's say, it is considered to be the essence of all Vedic teachings, the Bhagavatam. It is the masterpiece of Veda Vyas, and especially after having been blessed by his guru, Narad Muni. And in it we find all about the pastimes of the Lord. So one should get pleasure into hearing. Who wouldn't delight in hearing stories about this little boy, and he's just kind of innocent, and he gets highly criticized and gets bullied a little bit by his teachers, and then suddenly a lion pops out of nowhere and protects him because he's harassed by his father. Good storyline, isn't it? Or so that's Prahlad. And so one of my favorite stories is Sati, Sati and Shiva, and that whole in-law dynamic and how it plays out. It's very riveting. It's really wonderful, and you see real dedication that Shiva has for Sati, Sati for her husband. It's gorgeous, and there always has to be like a mean person there. That was her father, Daksha. He was not a nice guy, and he demonstrated a lot of selfishness. So good conflict is there when you have these two, good and evil, kind of clashing with each other. What fantastic stories they really are. And I guess some people delight. I guess when I was young, people read all kinds of things, like the boys would read about Robinson Crusoe, and it is a nice story. But the girls would read about the Bobbsey twins or Nancy Drew, and her novels like that. And I think Stephen King is one big guy who I love one of your the American writers. What's his name? John Steinbeck. I loved his stuff. Telling stories about like tear drenching stories of like what people had to go through the Dust Bowl in the Midwest and the desert, and like from the Grapes of Wrath or Mice and Men, like stories about the Depression time. Yeah, great stories. It pulls at your heart. It's great. So there are those literatures that are kind of like in the mode of goodness. We have literatures that are very extremely passionate and maybe send your mind into the gutter. But then we have the Bhagavatam that just elevates you, just takes you up to a heavenly zone, and to raise our consciousness. So that's what the gift of Prabhupada. Good. And so that's what should make people happy when they read these kind of stories. Stories of hope, not dreadful stories. And we subject ourselves so much to the news, and it's very depressing for the most part. So let's go gravitate to what will uplift. And in the beginning stages of the Bhagavatam, it says there's crows and there's swans. So swans like the milk, like with butter fat mixed into it, and they seem to really go for the butter fat, and which is such an incredible food, the miracle food that Prabhupada explains. And then you also have the crows that just go for, they hang around. I've seen them in Florida. I've seen the ravens. I've seen I've seen the vultures, the turkey vultures over there near Gainesville, hanging out in the fields, waiting for something to drop. I remember even in Miami, there was these turkey vultures swirling and soaring high out there by what do you call it? Peacock. What was that place? Murari, Peacock Park. Yeah. And I was wondering, what are they doing there here in the city? But obviously they were smelling something from nearby restaurants. It was ascending into the skies, and they were attracted to it. So let us be drawn to those things that help us to transcend. And that's what's going to us indeed very happy, so that we can experience Tushanti and Ramanti. Remember that when we chant Hare Krishna, in the Mahamantra, we have Rama, we say it regularly every time. We roll it out. And it has to do with the pleasure potency of the Lord, and that we also get pleasure, what we call in Sanskrit, Hladini Shakti. We get some pleasure from chanting. So while we get pleasure from chanting, pleasure also comes from discussing with each other about the transcendental literature. Yeah. I remember before Sridhar Swami passed away, many of you might know him. He worked very hard in our Mumbai program, and he was from Vancouver. He's one of our Canadian Swamis. We don't have too many. But I went to his home when he was not well. And we did some reading. And I also went to see him in Mumbai. Rana Swami brought me to his house. And we did some reading together, and we had such a good time, exchanging. If you want to have a good time, sit down with some books or with a screen, read and discuss what you just went through. And everyone's got a little something different to say. Become interactive, and you'll become happy. This is what I see comes from this verse too. Devotees conversing together, talking to each other, exchanging. It's not just one person sitting on a high chair and talking down on everyone. I get the sense that this verse, this shloka, is about people exchanging, throwing back and forth information that's vital, information that's spiritual. Okay, any other questions or comments? Deliberations, liberations even?
Maharaj, when you said that Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all the Vedic literature, remind me when Prabhupada said, from Pranava Om came Gayatri, from Gayatri came Vedas, from the Vedas came Brahma Sutra, and from Brahma Sutra came Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's a beautiful.
So yeah, it's for higher studies. Those who are in devotion will gravitate towards these higher levels of literature. Yeah. And when you do these kind of discussions, they can be very stimulating in the sense that everyone's got a little bit of a different point of view, angle at which they look at things, even for what they've just read. So in order to get that fullness, what we're talking about after Curtis was reading, that fullness that comes from this kind of exchange with devotees. Like, what did you get out of this verse or that verse? Or what did this paragraph say to you? And let everyone have something to say. And then everything becomes more complete and full. Good. Anything else anybody has up their sleeve? Some thoughts?
Say.
Earlier, Maharaj, when Gaurachandra Prabhu mentioned about the speed of the soul and speed of the mind, I just reminded me, thus Prabhupada's book says easy journey to other planets.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I think that's an attractive title. It's very catchy. And indeed, Prabhupada is talking about getting to other planets, but he more or less, the content of the book is that don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. So that's the curve that he puts on it. Yeah, you can go to this place and that place, but what's the use? Kind of becomes a little bit pointless. Let's go to the topmost planet where you have everything. Yeah, so speed, that's the topic. And while we try to go speedy in our Krishna consciousness, maybe some things we have to look at sometimes. Chanting our japa might be a little too fast sometimes. We're not hearing it. Sometimes we may do some service at the temple. Maybe we're driving a little too fast. Prabhupada didn't like anybody driving too fast. Or an anticipation that I should be advancing in my spiritual life a little more quickly. while we go with some speed and good momentum, we also need to be able to go at a pace where we can digest things really well. Just like when they say, don't eat too fast. You'll get better results in digestion if you eat at a good pace. Hard to do when you get sometimes Italian preps cooked by Guru Chandra Prabhu, or get a nice wild rice preparation done by Vaishnavi or something like that. We've been to your homes before. We know what's going on. Good. Murari Gupta, thank you for joining us. Are you going in high speed there in your car? Okay, you're muted.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Very slow speed.
Very good, fantastic, good. Thank you. Mandalaram, I think you wanted to say something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My obeisances, all glories to Prabhupada.
Nice to have you back.
Sorry, I was cutting in there. My internet was bad. But so this verse is specifically talking about discussions with devotees and how enlightening it is and uplifting. So what's better? Is discussions between devotees better, or giving Krishna to others?
Well, if we go on the premise that everyone's a devotee, what is the difference, right? I mean, if you're talking to devotees that are within, your reach that you see regularly, you might be talking about things they're familiar with, because as you are both advancing together. But in the case of someone who's new, there's so much pleasure and nectar that comes from, answering the questions of someone who's just new at the game. So if you're asking which one is better, it's both. It's all good. It's all one. All is good, as a Jamaican would say. All is good, man. Let's look at one of the later verses from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. If you peruse have a hard copy or a soft copy, just open your eyes to the latter pages.
Which verse, Maharaj?
That's a natural question to ask. Okay, we're looking at 68, okay? And it goes like this. While you're flipping and looking, I'll just, Idam paramanguyam, mad bhakti shabad hasyati, bhakti mayi param kritva, mam evashyatya samshaya. Translation. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. Then at the end, he will come back to me. So it looks like it's a priority for coming from the Lord, from Lord Krishna, that let us share Krishna consciousness. And when we say devotee, okay, that means practically anybody who's eager to learn and to listen. It doesn't have to be a formalized devotee, be someone who's coming forward with a devotional spirit. So there we go. Krishna is very pleased. The end, he will come back to me. These verses in the end are very critical, actually. Ben already. So 67, let's just look at 67, 68. Let's go through the bunch, okay? These are the verses that summarize the Gita. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. 68. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. And at the end, he will come back to me. And here's a key verse for us all. This ties into what Mandalaram you brought up. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear, referring to those who want to share Krishna consciousness. So the word, Anya Priyataru Bhuvi. There's nobody more dear to me than one who shares Krishna consciousness. And then the next verse, and I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. Text 71. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Okay, those are a chunk of verses that express what it does for you, to go over this dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Hare Krishna. So do we have time for any questions? I'd like to share with you a poem that I just wrote. Are you ready for that?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, I just have to go get it. It's in the next room. Okay. And I can't go too fast because I got a bad knee.
Like we're going with that.
Vansi Ganga Mataji, please chant some mantras until he comes back.
Okay, the reason why I brought this to your attention is that the opposite to Krishna Katha. Okay, still joining in. Isn't it true?
We didn't hear what you said. You were muted.
Okay. The opposing principle to Krishna Katha is gossip. Isn't it true? Okay, great. So this is not my final version, but it's a little bit hard hitting, so I hope you can bear with me. I'll call it either gossip no more or just gossip. Okay, so here we are. Gossip is a casual conversation on a topic whose truth is not confirmed. It is a devil's radio. Once broadcast, it can't be reversed. Call it a toxic tongue, a plague worse than a pandemic. Gossip is a cowardly, unofficial occupation of a jerk. Those employed are either on this part or full-time work. Some suffer from the condition of a verbal diarrhea. Addictions of rumors, like alcoholics drunk on tequila. Such people have nothing of substance to say. Fabrications from their mouth are always on display. Do take notice that those who gossip to you will eventually and inevitably gossip about you. It's very strange that those who know so little about you are suddenly an authority having all the goods on you. So stay away from this backstabbing game. Stay away from fault finders who bear no shame. Stay away from the people of derision and hold hands with folks who have vision. A better investment than being critical is to point out the good in an individual. Don't let that big fat mouth obstruct 2 good listening ears that are poised to reconstruct. Warning, gossip is a lethal weapon, and like a boomerang, once released, will come back to haunt and strike like a vicious beast. Hare Krishna, that's it.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Okay, we still got a little extra time. if anybody has anything on their mind, please come up and tell us what good has been happening to you.
But I got a question, Maharaj. My wife always asks me this one.
Arjuna, I recognize your voice, Arjuna. Go for it.
I say, my wife always asks me because the cat is always in the room, in the temple room when I chant Hare Krishna every morning. So would the cat necessarily possibly have a better existence because she actually sits for all 16 rounds and doesn't make noise and sits still and stares at the deity like me? Like, I always wondered that.
Is he making some progress? Is that your question?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I thought so.
There's a conversation between Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur. Everybody knows here that Haridas Thakur was the Namacharya. He was the master in chanting Krishna's name. And he did so many japas every day. So the two, Chaitanya and Haridas, had a discussion. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu played the role of being a student, a pupil. And he asked Haridas Thakur, so what about plants when you're chanting, you're in the forest, in the bush, do they get some benefit? And Haridas Thakur confirmed that, yes, indeed, they also get to benefit from the transcendental vibration of chanting. So I'm saying that what to speak of a cat. The cat will benefit from that. We had a cat in the temple here some years ago. We called him Kali. And he had a marking, like perfect tilak on his forehead. And he used to come into the devotees' rooms at night and sleep by their feet. And somehow or other, he wasn't trained, but he knew not to go into the temple room. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your cat come in the temple room. It's a house, it's a different thing. But intuitively, this cat knew what he can do and what he cannot do. And of course, one of the things that he did do was he ate non-prashadam food, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Unofferable.
But Garuda eats also.
Maharaj, I have something to share. A few years ago, we had a cat who left his body in our garage listening to Prabhupada chanting. My wife made sure that he or she was listening to Prabhupada chanting while he passed away in the garage with a garland from the deities from the temple on it.
For
I
about
would say that's a real cool cat.
He was listening to Mahamantra at least for 6 hours before it passed away.
Oh, wow.
And because the neighbors were intrigued by what is going on, and then they took Bhagavad Gita because of the cat listening to chanting.
Really? That's beautiful. What a great story. Yes. Good. So animals will benefit, just like people will, but their comprehension will be not so penetrating as the humans. But it's the sound vibration that's important. It offers a calmness. It offers a piece of Krishna in the form of sound, Namrup. It has an impact. So, yeah, he's a lucky cat. They say lucky dog. He's a lucky cat.
May I also share a story of a transcendent cat, Maharaj?
Oh my God, sure.
So, Hare Krishna, everybody. So, when I was living at the Vancouver Temple in the late 90s, I had my cat there and in my little ashram room. And one time I opened the door and he decided to go out. And I never let him out, I was just kind of taking care of him in secret. Don't tell anybody. But one night when all the devotees were in bed, I thought, the Vancouver Temple has, for those of you who haven't been there, it has kind of a vast property with lots of walking space and woods and things. So he trotted out the door and he made his way to the Tulsi greenhouses. He circumambulated the Tulsi greenhouse once and then he circumambulated the temple once, and then he made his way back to our room. And it was just so funny because when devotees would visit, that's what they would do. They would circumambulate Tulsi house and then circumambulate the temple, and then they'd go in and see the deities. So I just followed him. He didn't follow me. I was thinking, where is he going to go? And I was trying to make sure no coyotes got him. And this is what he did. And I realized he was a great soul. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, bravo. All these cats with their legacy. Nice. I mean, there's a lot of stories of devotees with cats and also dogs, and that have played some role devotionally in their lives. So Shivananda Saint had a dog. Krishna is a parrot. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a dog. Yeah. Prabhupada was petting the back of a cat, with his foot, and what mercy that is. All right.
Shri has a question, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Soumya from Cleveland Yatra.
Oh my God, Hare Krishna, how are you?
Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. It's so nice to see you. How's your health? How are your knees?
Well, I went to the physiotherapist 2 days ago, and this is a guy who was experienced. He was in the work for several years, and he said, "Well, you're in the top 5 of all the people I've seen." In the top 5 of a quick recovery. That was what he was saying. So, they were kind of amazed. I told them about my walking experiences. There were 3 guys actually that I went through, and they all were like to hear about the walks. And so as far as the recovery goes, it's good. I have one really fantastic devotee. His name is Paramahansa, and he's living in the temple here right now. And that is his occupation. His portfolio is to be a physiotherapist. So I'm in good hands.
Hari Bol, Maharaj. It's so nice to hear that. And we are eagerly expecting your arrival here in August, I think, August 24th.
Well, they're opening up the border on the 9th of August, I understand.
Hari Bol. Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj. That's going to be a treat for all of our devotees here at Cleveland Yatra. So thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, can't wait to be there in good old Cleveland again. Yeah.
We're so blessed, Maharaj, to have you here. So eagerly waiting for your arrival.
Eagerly waiting, nice, thank you. To all the devotees, Andy was on there, he's from Cleveland as well. And
Mother
Andy.
Mother Isho is there. Mother Isho, are you there?
Is she with us too?
Yes, Maharaj. I saw her.
Oh, she's the coolest lady.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hari
She was your coolest lady, Maharaj. We call her Mary Poppins.
And we got Jagadishwar, he's also there from Cleveland. So a lot of Clevelandites came on board this time around. Jai. Good. So, right now my legs are a little bit, they're just feeling a little bit, they get like a feeling of coldness. I don't know where that comes from, but I'm off, not taking, so I'm weaning off of them. So maybe that's the reason, but we're doing okay. Please meditate on Krishna's lotus feet, not on mine. They're not even lotus.
You're not taking what, Maharaj? We didn't hear that part.
Painkillers.
Okay.
Medications. All right, so it's 6 o'clock on the dot.
Maharaj, you take care of yourself. Hare Krishna.
I sure will, honey child. Okay, everyone. Till next week.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol Shashwata. And Murari Gupta's been with us too. Haribol. Hare Krishna.